Welcome to our video series, How to Close the Sale and Overcome Objections. My name's Kathleen Rittmaster. I'm the General Manager with Joe Verde Sales and Management Training.
With me today here in the studio, I have Joe Verde. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Sure.
Before we get started, in case some of you out there don't know who Joe is, he's authored 4 books on sales and sales management training for the car business, has produced many audio and video training programs for salespeople and sales managers, has spoken at 4 NADA annual conventions, is a featured speaker at many 20 groups and state conventions, and also holds 2-day manager workshops and 3-day sales training classes every month throughout the year. Joe, before we get started with this series on closing, many salespeople have common questions that they wish they could ask you in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've done is written some of those questions down that I've heard through the years. And would you take the time now to answer
Sure.
some of these questions for us? Great.
Absolutely.
The first question, as many of you can imagine, is that people want to know, did you really sell cars? And when you sold cars, did you really do as well as everybody hears that you did? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I sold cars. I started selling cars in 1973. I started on a farm back in Texas. I grew up there. I left the farm. I lived in a town about 900 people. I left the farm when I was 18. I joined the Army. My background prior to getting in the car business was fixing helicopters and plowing fields. And when I got in the car business, I don't know why you got in it. I got in it accidentally. I didn't know anybody. I didn't hear about the potential. I was reading some want ads one day. I was answering ads that talked about no experience necessary. I looked at ads that said, we train. And I wanted to make a lot of money. And I noticed that all the money jobs were in the selling section of the newspaper. So I started applying. And the first job I applied for wasn't the car business. It was Farmers Insurance. They had an ad that read, no experience necessary. We train, highest commissions in town, or something like that. I went down there. They gave me an hour and a half interview. I talked to 1 or 2 people. They said, come back tomorrow and we'll have a second interview. And I said, great. Well, the problem was I wanted to work and I just still needed a job. And I got back in the car and there was an ad laying there and it was from a car dealer. It was almost identical to the ad from Farmers Insurance. It said, no experience necessary. We train, highest commissions in town, build a future. And then it had a couple other things. It said flexible hours. Well, I caught my eye, kind of like that. And then it said demo. But I didn't know what a demo was. I thought maybe that was something you had to go out and do. I thought maybe you had to go out and present products or something. So I called the dealership and I asked the manager, I said, I saw your ad, but what's this demo stuff? And he said, that's a free car. And I said, oh, hang on to that job and I'll be right down. I didn't get in the car business because of the potential. I got in the car business because they had free cars back then. And they talked about training. Now, when I started selling cars, and again, my experience may be similar to yours, we didn't have much training. I should have realized that when I went down and applied for that job, the interview, I remember being maybe 3 questions. It may have been the 4th question. I'm not sure. First question was, the manager said, have you ever sold cars before? I said, no, I haven't. He said, why do you think you can? I said, well, gosh, I always liked cars, and a neighbor one time said I was real friendly and ought to be in sales. He said, when could you start? And that got me in the car business that afternoon. The training program, as I remember it, went something like, there's the new car lot, there's the used car lot. Do you have any other questions? And everybody that applied that day got hired, and I didn't realize that that was normal, nor did I realize they had an ad running 365 days a year. I didn't know what a TO store was. I didn't know that you could block people's trades in. I didn't know you could throw keys on the roof and live through it. And in today's market, you can't, so don't get any ideas. But I started selling cars. I worked hard. I had a lot of enthusiasm. I wanted to learn everything I could. We didn't have a lot of training. It was mostly you learn by experience. Now, there were some nice people that worked there. They were good old boys and girls, and I call it the huddle now. Most of these guys hung around the huddle most of the day, waiting for something to happen, and that's who I learned to sell from. When I first started, I had a lot of enthusiasm. I went out and talked to every customer that I could. I gave them all presentations, demonstrations, because obviously I didn't know any better. In the very beginning, though, when I was given all those presentations, I sold a lot of cars. I had a lot of fun. It was fun. I said, Kathleen, let me show you how neat this car is. Doesn't that drive nice? Wouldn't you like to have one of these? Wouldn't it be fun showing this off to all your friends? Enthusiasm pulls a lot of good natural selling skills out of people. And I had that enthusiasm in the beginning. Remember after you sold cars, though, for a week or two, 3 weeks maybe? Remember how the old-timers in the dealership kind of start chipping away at your enthusiasm? I remember selling my first couple cars, going up to the group out there on the lot. Again, nice people, but selling 6, 8, 10, 12 cars, something like that. And I'd go up to these guys and I'd say, hey, look what I did. Showed them my voucher. And they said, you guys get all the easy customers. Hang in there. I didn't understand that. I was excited. They just kind of tried to shoot my enthusiasm. I remember I was there a couple weeks and I sold a Dodge van. I made more money on that van than I made my 2-week paycheck in the Army. And I liked this. And I went back to that group out there for support. And I said, hey, guys, look at this. And again, they just said, you guys get all the laydowns. Hang in there. You'll be down here with us soon. And you know they were right, because I started hanging around them, and it didn't take them very long to teach me how to pre-qualify everybody. It didn't take them very long to take away my enthusiasm. It didn't take them very long to teach me how to become an average salesperson, and it didn't take them long to teach me some ways to justify it. The market, the weather, the economy, we don't have the right inventory, the manager's trying to steal all the trades, the finance manager couldn't get a deal bought if his life depended on it, the new car manager couldn't work a deal if he had to. We had a reason for every season. It's summer. Can't sell cars in the summer. People going on vacations. Summer's over. Well, I can't sell cars then. People are coming back from vacation. Got to buy school clothes. It's Christmas. You don't sell cars at Christmas. They're at the malls. We learned a reason for every sale we didn't make. Now, I spent 5 years in the car business that first time, and I was a good average top salesman. I was the 8, 10, 12, 14 car a month person. I was a half a car better than the next guy most of the time, and that's about as good as I ever got. My best year was about $22,000, $23,000. My average months were more in the $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 range. That flexible hours they advertised in the paper at that first place, later I realized we had to be flexible, the hours weren't. And we were putting in 12, 14, 16-hour days, and we did that 6 days a week, 7 days a week. If our day off was Tuesday or Thursday, we were berated if we were going to take it off. What, you're taking Thursday off? We're expecting people. Well, it's my day off. Which is more important, day off or your job? And they never let us take a day off. I spent 5 years doing this, and somewhere along the line I found a calculator. And I did some math, and I don't know if you think it's a good deal or a bad deal, but if you do your math, if you work 16-hour days and are making $2,000 a month, I don't know how to tell you, but that's not a good deal. That wasn't even a good deal back in 1973. I found out that I was really a $1,000 a month salesperson working 2 shifts. So I was making a couple grand on a good month, but I was just putting in twice the hours the average person was. And I realized that wasn't any good. And I quit selling cars. I got tired of it. I got tired of the only closing method I was ever taught was, if we can work it out today the way we want to buy it, can we sell you guys a car? If the terms and figures are agreeable, could we wrap this up and send you home in it? Or what do we have to do to earn your business? The only method I was ever taught to overcome objections. If you said, well, Joe, I like the car, but I don't like the color. Well, what if we drop the price? Well, I wanted a 5-speed. What if we drop the price even more? Everything was drop the price, everything was if I could would you, and every sale was a grind. Most of them were that 30 minutes, hour, hour and a half. I remember being there till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, grinding out a deal to make $25. And I thought that's what selling was. And after about 5 years of this, I got tired of it. I got tired of the hours, I got tired of the money, and I got tired of the people that we were talking to. All of our customers were angry, they were mad at us, they didn't like us. They wouldn't come back and do business with us again. They drove by and threw Coke bottles at us going 90 miles an hour. I didn't like the image that went with the business. So I quit selling cars. And when I quit selling cars, I was 30-something years old then. I'd never made any money. I had helicopter mechanic, plowing fields, and average car salesman as a background. And I decided to open my own company. I opened a pinstriping, side molding, sunroof company. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be around cars. And when I started that business, I wandered in a bookstore one day and I saw a book on selling section or self-improvement. And I said, heck, I got a company of my own. I wonder if there's any books over here that'll help me learn how to sell my products. I wandered over there and I was amazed. There were hundreds of books on the shelf on how to get better, how to close, how to overcome objections, how to follow up, how to prospect, how to manage your time, how to set goals, how to do everything that we're told that we need to do, but nobody actually shows us how to do it. And I spent the next 2.5 years in my business, and I read books and listened to tape and went to seminars, and I counted one time. I moved, and I had all these books in the garage. I went through about 120 or 30 books, tapes, and seminars on how to close, overcome objections, do all these things. And then I got back in the car business. Now, I learned how to sell not from the car business. I got out and learned from industries, successful companies, IBM, Xerox. I learned how to sell from professionals in real estate, professionals in insurance. I learned how to sell from a lot of old dead guys. You know, kind of laugh about it, but Ben Franklin's an old dead guy. And he gave me one of the best tips on negotiating. He said, you have to set up a win-win for the customer. He said, when you're selling, you're trying to convince people to buy. You've got to cover features, advantages, benefits that they're interested in if you want to make the sale. Old guy named Socrates. We talk about selling, getting minor commitments. Socrates knew that. He said, if you want people to say the right thing, ask them the right question. It's like if I want you to respond with a yes now, wouldn't I just ask you a yes question?
Yes.
It's not that tough. Socrates knew that stuff. And I learned things that I was never taught in this business. My manager said, don't talk price, but I never knew how not to talk price. My manager said, follow up, but I never knew how to follow up. And I learned all those things, and I got back in the car business. And I don't know what good is. Good is different in everybody's mind. When I got back in the car business with my new skills, my new work habits, and my new attitudes, in 12 weeks, I made more and I made my best year. My first 12 weeks back in the business, I made more and I made the best year I spent the first 5 years. In 7 months, I made more and I made the first 5 years put together. Now, that was just the beginning, and I got better. But the point of the story is that there's a lot we can learn. But if you wait around for somebody to teach it to you, you wait for the dealer to send you to a class, you got to do a lot of this on your own. And whoever got you this tape set, you want to pat them on the back and thank them. There's a lot of information in here. We're going to cover things that I was never taught in this business. I could have taken a 5-year shortcut if I'd have had just the information on this tape set. So, yeah, I sell cars. And the other common question that comes up in class when I actually meet people, I am taller than I look on video.
How tall are you?
6'2".
Oh, okay. It's on record. This video production that we've just completed here is the most extensive video program you've ever done. Why did you pick closing, and why is it so long? So much information.
I picked closing because if you can't close the sale, you're not going to make a lot of money. You know, our dealer supplies us cars, he supplies us a service department, he supplies us the people to take care of the financing, to do the paperwork, supplies us a desk, supplies us cars, supplies us people to talk to. And the average salesperson listening to this talks 3 or 4 people a day. Now, of those 3, let's say that we talk to 4 people. Just statistically, of the 4, 3 are going to buy a car. Now, if we look at that and multiply it out, in an average month, the average salesperson misses somewhere between 40 and 60 sales that we could have had. Not because of the opportunity, somewhere because of what we did with them. Now, the class is on closing, but there are a lot of other related subjects. I can teach you some great closing questions. I can make you understand objections. I can make you realize that most of the objections you get are reflex objections. I can show you how to handle them. But if you don't follow the basics, if you don't give presentations, demonstrations, closing isn't a secret. There's no trick. There's no one close that'll work with everybody. It's one of the most important subjects, though, because if we don't close the sale, they go down the street and buy the car. If they have an objection, we have to learn to handle it. And if we don't handle it, they leave. And I'm not sure if people are aware, but when they leave, they buy the car somewhere else. And the reason it's so long is there's so much to talk about. We're going to spend hours. You know, in our big video, the other big video that we have, I'm able to cover closing in about an hour, hour and a half, because we squeeze too much in it. This is 6 or 7 hours just on closing. And we could go on and on and on because there's even more, but there has to be a limit, there has to be a point. I think closing and handling objections, especially some of the common objections we get, price objections. We have a tape set just on staying off price. And we've had salespeople, dealers, managers, we've had one dealership raise their gross almost $1,400 a car just by not talking price on the lot anymore. So we kind of squeeze all that in here. If we're going to be successful in this business, we have to be better at selling than the customer is at not buying. They come down, they buy a car every 2-3 years. We have an opportunity to sell a car 3 or 4 times a day. Who should be better at it?
The salesperson selling the car.
Seems like it. But, you know, if our average closing ratio is 20%, that means they're 80%. They're better at it, 4 times better at it than we are. So we have to get better. And there's just so much information on closing and objections in here that relates to everything else we do. We touch on a lot of other minor subjects.
There are going to be a lot of people that are watching this video program that may already have listened to your 5-tape audio set on how to close, or they already have your 12-tape video set on how to sell more cars in today's market. For them, is this just going to be repeat information?
If I said every word the exact same way that I say every word on the tape that you might already have, it might be repetitive, but if you understand the learning process and retention, if I said the exact same thing every time and you listen to the tape, you listen to it once, you get 10%. Take good notes, you get 20%. Do the homework comes with this thing, and you may walk away with 50% of it. But did you develop all the skills that we talk about? No, of course not. And one of the things we're going to talk about briefly on tape is the difference between learning something and developing a skill. I can teach you to close here in the next couple of hours, the next 5 or 6 hours on tape. You won't develop the skill of a closer for the next 30 to 60 days. It takes that long to develop skills. So, no, to answer your question, I'm going to take most of our series and expand them. You know, there's a lot of things I wished I could have said on some of those other tape sets. Fine standalone products, good programs. We've had people make improvements from every one. But I've always wanted to put more of it all in one package, and this has given me the opportunity. And this is pretty much straight out of our 3-day class with some extra. You know, in the 3-day class, I'm limited to how long I can talk about closing or follow-up or prospecting or anything else. I wasn't limited in this tape set.
One of the questions that I got from a newsletter subscriber is, what's the secret? What's the secret close, or is there a secret close? What's your thought on that?
There is a secret to closing. There's a secret to being successful in sales, and the secret is to do everything you're supposed to do and then some. Most of us go out here and try to get rich taking shortcuts. I tried that too for 5 years. It doesn't work. I've got almost every book written on the lazy man's way to riches, whatever you want to call it. I've tried every shortcut. The shortcuts don't work. What does work is following the basics, treating people right, giving them a value-building presentation, having effective closing skills when they come up with an objection, having effective skills to overcome the objection, knowing how to do the paperwork, knowing how to do a write-up, knowing how to get a credit app, knowing how to deliver the car. There are no secrets and there are no shortcuts. I was driving up the coast, Washington and Oregon one time. I passed an old out-of-business gas station. And the marquee on this gas station, it looked like a movie marquee. It said, don't worry about learning the tricks of the trade, learn the trade. And if you stop and think about it, our trade as a salesperson is to get people excited about a car and get a commitment to buy it. And that sums up everything we're supposed to do. If we just get good at that, we wouldn't need any trick closes. Besides that, there aren't any.
Well, if there aren't any trick closes and there is no one secret, what's the most important thing that a salesperson is going to learn out of this new series?
I hope one of the most important things that people pick up out of this is that you can be more successful. We talk about potential in this business. You can be as successful as you want to be. I hope that you also realize that selling is a step-by-step process. Every step I take, from my initial first impression that I make, to my greeting, to my building rapport, to my investigation, presentation, demonstration, closing, objections, every step is critical. And if we look at statistics, our customers tell us we go straight from the curb to the car. I want to look at a new Explorer. Great, we got 7 of them over here. We skip the rapport building, the investigation, and when we skip that, we don't get to make a good presentation. I don't care how much you know about a car, you're going to give a bad presentation. It'll be bad because you don't know the customers. You don't know what they want. You didn't make friends with them. So some of the things that I hope you get, I hope you realize you can be a lot more successful, and I hope you realize that this is a step-by-step process. And every time you skip a step, reach in your pocket, take $200 or $300 and throw it away, because that's what you're doing. That's just...
Isn't closing just one part of the sale? And what else would you recommend that salespeople focus on?
Closing is one part of the sale, but closing is everything you do to make a sale.
Could you explain that?
If I get up in the morning and I have a good attitude, am I closing sales that day? Am I going to hurt my chances of selling more cars, or am I going to help my chances if I get up with a good
chances.
attitude?
Help your
If I get
chances.
up and I got this rotten attitude, does that help or hurt?
Starting off on a bad foot.
So if I come to work with this ugly look on my face and go out and talk to a customer, I'm not going to close too many sales that day. Now, most of us were given a list of the 10 steps to selling or something like that. And I got that the first day I started. My manager had a half a sheet of paper and it was written on there, handwritten steps to selling. That was our training. Step number 1 was a warm and friendly greeting or something like that. Qualify them for dollars and cents, and you'll never hear me say qualify for dollars and cents. What we need to do is investigate for wants and needs. Forget the dollars and cents stuff. But closing on that list of 10 steps was step number 7. That implied, and the only training I had, I didn't know how to assimilate the information or how to use it. All I heard that you close at step number 7. So I'd go out there and show people a car, wander around, say, what do you think, answer any questions, then I'd say, if we can work it out today the way you want to buy it, can I sell it to you? And I wondered why I never made sales. I worked hard, I worked long, I talked to everybody I could, I pushed them into getting in the car, I tried to push them into buying, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't sell cars. That's not the answer.
Well, what would you say is the key to closing and overcoming objections
The
in
key
today's market?
The key to closing and overcoming objections is to have the right closing and objection scripts. Obviously, you have to do that. But that's this part. The sales started way back here. The key is to do every bit of this right and have good closing scripts and good objection scripts. And as soon as I say the word script, a lot of people don't like that word script. Well, you need to understand that everything you say now, I don't care what it is, your greeting. If you say, welcome to the dealership, that's a script. If you say, how can I help you, that's a script. When a customer says, what's my trade worth? If you say, I don't know, that's a script. If you say, we have to check with my manager, that's a script. We need to understand that everything we're saying now is scripted. The problem is, since we didn't have a lot of formal training, and even if you had a 2-week training program, that's not a lot. And probably most of it was on product knowledge. We haven't had the training, so the training we got was from the guys out on the lot. The 6, the 8, the 10, the 12 car guy. And I almost can remember hearing a 6 car guy telling me everything I needed to know to get rich in this business. I learned his scripts and wondered why I never could make any money. You got to change your scripts. The only tools we have in sales, when I was a mechanic, I had pliers, I had wrenches, I had all kinds of tools. We had special tools for different things. In sales, we only have one kind of tool. It's called the words that we use. And we need special tools, different methods to handle an objection, different methods to close. Our special tools are closing skills. Our regular tools are presentation skills, demonstration skills. And it takes a full toolbox, whether you're fixing cars, fixing helicopters, or selling cars. And most of us, you know, if you go out and look at your mechanics in the service drive, the technicians, I was a mechanic when we were mechanics, now we're technicians. If you go out in the service department and look at your technicians and their toolbox, you open that box up and they got hundreds of tools in there. And when I lived on a farm, I was a backyard mechanic. I could fix a lot of things, but I had 3 basic tools, a hammer, pliers, and some baling wire. And you can fix a lot of things with hammer, pliers, and a baling wire. But when I got in the car business my first 5 years, I would have been the equivalent to that backyard mechanic. I had 2 basic tools. If we can work it out today the way you want to buy it, and let me drop the price. After I learned how to sell, I developed my selling toolbox. And now I still practice, drill, and rehearse. I try to get better and better. I try to keep learning more. I've been through another 2, maybe 300 books since the first 100. And what I realized is every time I pick up a book and read it, there's so much that I've either forgotten or I don't know, that it's got to be absolutely crazy for people to quit learning more after 6 weeks. No wonder we get stuck in the $2,000, $3,000 a month bracket when people are making $80,000 or $100,000.
When a lot of salespeople first start selling cars, I hear about the potential that you can earn, the money you can make selling cars. Joe, what do you think a salesperson could really earn selling cars?
We've all heard that statement, this has unlimited potential in this business. Let me just make a statement. You can earn as much as you ever wanted to earn in your life. Now, one of the problems is salespeople try to go from making $2,000 a month to $15,000 a month, and they try to do it by next month. It's an unrealistic goal. They slip and fall. You're going to be in a career as long as you're in this career. Let's say that the average person in our business, if you don't know some of these things, the average person sells 10 cars. The average person earns $29,300, according to an article in Automotive News. And that's what we find to be true from talking to people in our classes. That's what you get for being average. That means you can show up with a pen in your pocket, know nothing, use if I could, would you, let me drop the price, take the shortcuts, and still end up with a $2,000, $3,000 paycheck. Now, if we're going to talk about getting better, if we want to talk about the potential, if you're selling 10 cars now, can you learn to sell 11? I mean, is there anything in your mind? Can you see yourself, if I did a little bit better at this, if I learned this, could I sell 11? Of course. I've met people that sell 40 cars. And I had a lady come up to me in Denver one day. We were in a sales class, and we were talking. I said, how many cars do you sell? And she said, I sell 40. And I said, gosh, how long have you been in that rut? And she looked at me and said, well, what do you mean rut? And I said, and she didn't get the word rut out. She said, what do you mean? Whoa, you know, about a year and a half.
Really?
She said, you're right, I quit getting better a year and a half ago. She can sell 41 or 42. I know people who sell 70 or 80 cars a month. And by the way, I checked, they're not related to the owner, they're not in fleet, and they don't get all the house deals. They work. They work smart. And one of the keys to long-term success, you talk about the keys to closing, doing the right job while you're on the lot today. The keys to long-term success is a good follow-up program. I've never met anybody in this business that made over $100,000. Let me see if I'm saying this truthfully. I haven't met anybody in this business that makes over $100,000 a year that doesn't have a pretty good follow-up program. The reason I had to think about that, I have met some people that make $15,000 a month just as good closers. But they don't stay in a place very long, and they hardly ever make over 100. They jump around too much. They're not consistent. They'll have $15,000 a month and have a $2,000 a month. The potential, I talk to dealers, managers, salespeople around the country. There are people in our business that make $300,000 a year. We were talking to a dealer not too long ago who just became the dealer, and he said, I really hated to quit selling. I was making, what, $30,000 or $40,000 a month? That's a lot. That's a lot of money. I never made that kind of money. You may never make $40,000 a month, but because somebody has done it, that means we can certainly do better than $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month. And the key to success with earning more and reaching that next level, that next plateau, is to just have a good, clear goal, a good, realistic goal. This business creates short-term thinking. We think about what we can sell today, this weekend, this month. All the bonuses and spiffs are on that. There's not much emphasis on developing a career, becoming a professional. What's your 5-year goal? What do you want to get out of this business 5 years from now? To me, the opportunity to make, if you've never made more than $40,000 a year, to me, the opportunity to make 80, even if that's 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, that somehow doesn't seem bad. But I see people get in a business, they don't learn anything, they work long and hard, and they throw up their hands one day and quit and go to truck driving school and learn how to make $30,000 a year or whatever they do. Because there they go learn something, and they do get good at it, and they eventually grow. Well, we're in the highest paying profession. This pays better than truck driving. It pays better than computers. It pays better than almost anything. There's only a couple of professions that make more money than the car business does. So it's unlimited, whatever unlimited means to you.
Another question that we get is, can't you give us a quick and easy way? Isn't there a quick and easy change that a salesperson can make to close more sales?
Absolutely. There is a quick and easy change you can make. There's 3 things that control your career in sales. Your skills, and this class is on skills, closing skills, objection skills, your work habits, and your attitudes. Skills, habits, and attitudes. I'd bet that you have the habit of going to work to wait. I'd bet that you do what I used to do when I first started selling cars, first 5 years. I'd go to work with my tie not tied, the newspaper under my arm, and we'd go to work at 9 o'clock and get there barely. Now, we didn't have a meeting every morning, so we'd kind of go to the office at the end, and we'd drink our coffee in there and visit and talk until the manager came over and said, hey, you guys, get out of here. It's time to go to work. Go sell something. And he'd leave, and we'd all kind of go to the coffee machines behind his office out by service. We'd hang loose out there for a while, visit with each other, certainly not talk to a service customer who might buy a car. We'd visit there for a while. Some of us would go to the used car lot. Some of us go to the new car lot under the gazebo. And then about 10:30, if I remember right, the garbage truck, the roach coach, whatever you call it, come along and save us. And then we were allowed to eat something, of course, and we took a break, and we'd get a breakfast burrito and another cup of coffee. And then we'd kind of brunch until about 11:15. And then we'd start figuring out who's going to go get lunch, because now it's lunchtime. And we'd pull out the menus, we'd write down who wanted what, start collecting money. And then we'd send the gopher, and they'd go get the lunch, and then we'd come back, and at 12:15, 12:30, come back with McDonald's and all this stuff. And then we'd start eating. And then we'd eat till, about 1 o'clock. And then, we're too tired, so we'd stretch, we'd go get another cup of coffee, have a Pepsi or something. We might go out and burp on a customer now and then all of a sudden we've blown our day, and it's 3 o'clock, it's time to go home. Then we'd say, well, I'm going to have to stay late tonight. Gosh, there's just been no traffic, nothing's going on. Boy, the market, the weather, the economy, everything's terrible. And I'd be there till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, catch a late up, write them up, because my chances are almost over selling a car today. In real life, the average person in our 3-day class tells us that they put in about a 9-hour day. Now, if we looked at how much time you work in that 9-hour day, the average time that we get in the class when we're talking to salespeople is, well, in real life, you know, I screw around most of the day. I probably only work 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, if you stop and think about a $30,000 a year job that's only 3 hours a day worth of work, that's not a bad job. That's really a good part-time job. Imagine how much money you'd make if you worked all 9 hours of your 9-hour shift. When you talk about a quick and easy way, you can almost double your sales that quick just by going to work. Stay away from the group out there on the lot, quit getting in those hum-haws about who got cut on a deal, and go to work. Go find a customer. Go talk to somebody. Prospect out in service. Just visit with people. If you don't know how to prospect, just go talk to people. You'll accidentally bump into a buyer because everybody's got a car. It's just, a lot of people sit on the fence in this business. They sit there and they try it for a year or 2 or 6 months. Some of us have been doing it 15 years, still trying it till a decent job comes along. Quit trying it. Get in it. Get in it like you would get into any other profession, and you got it made. That would be the biggest shortcut anybody could take.
Well, after watching this tape series, how much more money do you think a salesperson is going to be able to earn?
If you just learn to close, if you're a 10-car person, if you just learn to close, because 10 is average. If you just learn to close, you could go from 10 to 20 and do it almost overnight. But you could do from 10 to 20 if you just followed the basics. You could do from 10 to 20 if you just did a follow-up with the people you tried to sell a car to and it didn't work out and turned them into B-bags. You could go from 10 to 20 in a short time just by following up on your repeat and referral customers. So you can increase sales 5 cars. In fact, do you want to sell more cars? Nod yes or no. Of course they do. Can you sell more cars? Right now, without even listening to this tape, without hearing another word, if you flip the tape off right now, if you just went to work, could you sell more cars? Sure. So my question is, how many more could you sell? I mean, if you decided to quit screwing around, if you just did a little follow-up that you don't want to do, if you just gave a few more people a presentation, you just treated a few more people as buyers, if you just gave a little bit better presentation demonstration, how many more could you sell? What, 3, 4, 5? Again, in the 3-day class, the average person says about 5. Well, if your average commission or what you earn on an average sale is worth somewhere around $250, count your salary if you get salary and add it all in there, works out to about $200, $300 a car. If you're missing 5 sales just because you don't want to go to the trouble, well, 2 times 5 is 10. That's $1,000 a month. So if I'm making $2,000 a month now, I could raise my sales 50% or my income 50% just by going to work. There's, you know, these income and potential questions are hard to answer because potential is up to us. We're going to get out of life whatever we put into it. You're going to get out of this profession whatever you put into it. You work smart, and I'm not going to try to convince you in any of my series to work long and hard. That's not the answer to success. Long, hard work and good intentions will wear you out and never get you anywhere. Short, smart work is the key to success. So go to work smart.
In short term, what can somebody go out and use today after watching this tape series? A day after they're done with the tape series and they're out on the lot, what can they use right away?
I can tell you that there will be hundreds of ideas on this tape. And I mean hundreds. We're going to cover, 6 or 8 major topics. In those major topics, though, you have minor topics. And there's so many techniques and so many ideas. The workbook, there was about a 90-page workbook filled with scripts, filled with things you can say. Almost anything you can pick to go out and do better this afternoon. You may choose a different set of words. There's 100 things, but just one thing. And quit closing with, if we can work it out today the way you want to buy it, can I sell you guys a car? Switch that to an either-or question. Bob, sounds like found a perfect car. You want to put it in your name or her name? Maybe I shouldn't explain closes before we get into it. That might sound too easy, but that's as hard as it is. We lose sales. We create objections with bad closing questions. You could just go out and give more presentations this afternoon. You could just pretend everybody you're talking to is a buyer. Some would surprise you and turn into buyers. You could just go out and do the things your managers told you to do. You could just answer the telephone correctly the next time a customer calls in, make an appointment with them, get them on the lot. That one, there's so many possibilities. That one's the hardest question you've asked so far to answer, believe it or not.
There's so many common objections that we get in the car business.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the most common objections that salespeople hear, and are you going to cover all of those in this tape series and give them some different answers and different ways to handle some of those objections?
I'm going to cover every objection that I know of in this class on closing and objections. And I'm not going to cover the exact objection, but I'm going to tell you that there are only 7 objections we get. If you stop and think about it, we go through a career with 7 major objections, and most of us never learn to answer, never learn to respond properly, and never develop a technique to handle just those 7 objections. I can take those 7 objections, the only 7 that we get, and turn them into 3 objections. I can narrow those down. Instead of this big 7, we can narrow them down to 3. And then I can give you scripts on handling all those 3s. And that's what this tape set's about.
Will you be
Closing,
covering that then?
absolutely. We're going to cover, you're going to get more information on closing and objections than it's likely that you ever had in your career. People come to our 3-day class and say, geez, I learned more before lunch than I learned in the last 38 years. This class is filled with information, and I promise I won't bore you with anything that doesn't matter. You may have heard something before, and the repetition's good, you'll learn it. You may hear a story you've heard before. Manager one time, not one time, a few weeks ago, called me. We were talking, he said, Joe, my guy's been through your tapes, they just love it. He said, of course, they got all the stories memorized. I said, that's great. Do they have the scripts memorized? He said, well, you know, I don't know if they got the scripts down, but they sure got those stories down. The key to this is to learn the scripts, learn the new words. Trade in some old words that don't work for some new words that will work.
I'm glad you brought up managers. That was going to be my next question for managers. Well, what would you recommend for managers and their salespeople? What's the best way to use this tape series to get the most out of it?
For managers and salespeople both. As managers, and I hope you're sitting in the audience out here, you need to go through this tape set as though you were a salesperson. You need to do the same homework that we're going to expect our salespeople to do. The reason we need to do that is because, you know, sometimes as a manager or the person in charge, we say, go do your follow-up. And in our mind, follow-up is easy. But we've given them a task that they may not know how to do, that we may not do very well. I would suggest that we all get involved in selling. We're sales managers, so we need to constantly improve our selling skills. The way to learn this is practice, drilling, and rehearsing. I hope you get involved in this. You've got a almost 100-page workbook here. If I can get you to take notes, taking notes would be an advantage. If you take notes, you'll remember more. There's going to be homework with the class, and I can tell you, if you do your homework, you'll sell more cars and you'll make more money. And I can tell you, if you don't do your homework, not much is going to change. A lot of people buy a tape set, they lay over a few dollars, and they say, oh, I bought the set and nothing changed. Nothing changes until you change. You need to work hard on practicing, drilling, and rehearsing. It's going to take you 30 to 60 days to develop a skill, and we're going to talk about 6 or 8 major skills. So you got a lot of work cut out for you. And if you think you're going to play this tape, walk out the door, and get rich this afternoon just because you listen to it, I don't know how to tell you, but that won't happen for most of you. This is going to be work like anything else anything that's beneficial requires work. And this tape set's got a lot of built-in homework to it. But if you do it, you can't believe how easy selling is. I would make the statement that it's much easier to make $100,000 a year selling cars than it is to only make 20. It's easy to go to work when you know what to do. It's tough to go to work and wing it. And the $20,000 a year person stands in the sun, the rain, the heat, the cold, the snow out here, and they wait for a stranger who doesn't like them, know them, and trust them. They take every shortcut they can. They use ineffective closes, don't know how to overcome objections, and wonder why they never get past $30,000 a year. The professional has learned the words. The professional doesn't stand in the snow. The professional's got a repeat and referral business. The pro knows what to say when an objection comes up, knows how to handle it, knows how to transfer it down into an objection we can easily take care of, knows how to close the sale, knows how to take an I'll think it over and turn it into an opportunity to close. It's easy if we develop our skills.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us. And let's start this tape series.
All right, I'll see you on tape.
All right. Thank you.